I forgot how much was in this next section.
I mean, we could just do the Beatitudes for the next episode.
Probably a good way to do it.
Sorry about that noise.
That's all right. I kind of want to at least get through verse 16, I think. Going through the Blessed Are group up to the point of being the salt of the earth and the light of the world. I kind of think all that fits together. And then I think that's a pretty good break point for the next section. I might be able to argue against some of these actually too.
Ready.
All right. Do you have a way you want to start it, or do you want me to come up with one?
Yeah.
No, that was two different questions, John.
I have a way. Sorry, I was thinking about. I was answering the first question. Sorry, no to the second question.
Okay.
Now I don't even know if no is a correct, an appropriate response. Like, because you said, "Do I have a way to start it, or should I come up with something?" Right?
Yes.
So yes, I have a way to start it. No, you don't have to come up with anything. Okay, yeah, that works. I'll leave a pause.
I'm gonna have to put that in for the for this episode.
I must prepare. I like the preparing when the guy starts talking about the comedian Pete Holmes. He starts talking about how in old video games everything was an actual person. Like when they were speaking in the video games, it was an actual person who got into a studio, prepared. He blows his lips and preparing like you would if you were about to say something, and he goes, "Sonic Boom." and I laugh because I know exactly what game he's talking about.
Street Fighter.
Yeah. When I was that age, I wanted to be Guile. I wanted to actually be him.
I always was drawn more to Ryu.
Ryu was excellent. Later on, when I actually paid attention to who I could win with, Ken was my go-to.
Yeah, I could see that.
He's like Ryu. I think Ryu is stronger. Like, I think he does more damage, but Ken is faster for sure.
Yes. I always did fairly well with Chun-Li.
Yeah, Chun-Li's good. I remember early on
Zangief. I did pretty well with Zangief.
Oh man, Zangief. Oh man, there was something I used to make jokes about Zangief. I can't remember what it was. Maybe if I go back and play the game sometime, I can figure it out. I went through a phase of I used Vega a lot and was pretty good with Vega.
I did the same thing, actually. I don't know. I don't remember why. I think it just because of the novelty of the claw.
He was fast too.
Yeah.
And he can make him bounce all over the screen, and have these sort of like over the head, aerial attacks. Okay, so I was thinking about the Beatitudes the other day, and most of them are good.
I like that. The other day, not a few minutes ago.
Right.
A little peek behind the curtain. Yeah, I had not read them in a long time. I had not thought about them in a long time. I didn't realize I would have issue with some of them either. It's kind of interesting. So I'm re-deciphering and seeing, do I actually have issue with them, or it's similar to how we kind of talked through in the last episode. Maybe I don't have issue with them. I just have issue with them at first reread.
Mm-hmm. Well, the one that I take issue with is towards the end of the Beatitudes, where it's actually in the last verse. This would be Matthew 5:13. No, 12. He says to rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. And before that, it talks about blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. I just feel that those two things are I don't know, a false sense of I understand what they're trying to say there, but it seems problematic to me. Be happy about this sort of persecution simply because you're following the teachings of Christ.
Yeah, I'm just attempting to kind of remove myself from immediate thought and think about uh, what it could mean from a general framework instead of the more literal kind of interpretation, I suppose. I kind of get it. Um, I thought I would have more of an issue with it than I do. But if I step back and I think about it from the stance of hold to your ideals and beliefs, even if you're ridiculed and reviled or persecuted. But I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
no, I know, because if we were sitting here and saying, if somebody is making fun of you or giving you a hard time because you're wearing a mask in 2020 and 2021 and hell today, you know, it'd be like, okay, consider that a good thing because somebody noticed you wearing your mask and doing the right thing, noticed in a negative way.
yeah, I mean, I kind of interpret it that way, and my initial read was not that way. I'll be fully transparent. My initial reread, I had a few of them that I kind of paused on and thought about being problematic, like um, the thirst for righteousness reference, and um, the idea of, similar to you, the persecution, like they didn't seem to make sense. The thirst for righteousness one being probably the one that I still have the most difficulty reconciling if I don't think about it from more of an abstract perspective. And just in case because I know translations differ a little bit, that would be verse 6, just in case you want to look at it separately. But instead of being hung up on the word righteousness, which, again, similar to the interpretation of being persecuted for someone else's actions kind of thing, there's an immediate connotation because of history with the church that is different from what I think the meaning actually is. And trying to remember to separate those is problematic when it's a read through and provide thoughts or reactions, as opposed to read through and pause and ignore all the BS that you heard when you were younger and think about what is actually being crafted as a narrative in this particular chapter. And then I don't get as hung up on this idea of righteousness, because it's not the holier than thou mentality that I immediately associate with the word righteous. It's maintaining the right mindset and the appropriate response and these ideals that you have ascribed to. That would be the interpretation of righteousness in this context.
Yeah, I actually, when I was reading, I, like you, am reading these for the first time in a long time today. And when I got to that part, that was, of the first few, that was the only one I took a moment, but I quickly came to the place that you came to, and then focused my attention on the last couple of verses in the Beatitudes.
And so, with the last couple, I mean, it's tough not to think of it that way. I agree. Like, I don't want to take away from that interpretation, but I do want to emphasize that it's because of the way it's been used inappropriately that we both latch on to that interpretation so quickly.
Personal experiences.
Yes, very much so. Because I like the mask example quite a bit. I actually didn't think about that particular example. What I thought about was was it last week? Maybe even prior to that. Relatively recently, we've had the conversation about maintaining integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, two or three episodes ago.
I think it was 2 episodes ago.
But that's very much referencing. Try not to accelerate my speech either as it gets later. Very much referencing this idea of integrity to what you have internalized as your core values and philosophy. And with that, of course, it makes sense. It's kind of difficult to think about preaching the alternative because that would be immediately compromising what you have proclaimed to be your ideals and values and what you are going to champion and verbalize or proclaim, or I'm trying to think of all these different verbs you could use to be relatively all-encompassing, but what it comes down to is just what you're going to exhibit or what example you're going to set. So I say all that. I'm not entirely sure if you just go to the end of that stretch, right? I think verse 12 is problematic in a number of different ways, regardless of how you interpret it. But it's because it goes against our natural inclinations with regard to behavior. I don't think it's problematic from a ideological perspective. I think it's problematic from an expectation of behavior perspective.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. And it can lead to extreme behavior, such as self-injury.
Yeah, I could see extreme behaviors being
self-injury is a form of penitence. I thought of the character from one of those Dan Brown novel movies turned into Tom Hanks' version of Indiana Jones.
Yeah, the Angels and Demons, right? Or no,
I can't remember which movie. But
Paul, there's 3 or 4 of them.
But I think it was the first one or the second one. The first one was the Da Vinci Code, and the second one was Angels and Demons, which is a prequel to the Da Vinci Code. It might be Angels and Demons, where Paul Bettany plays a character that beats himself, like injures himself for penitence.
Yeah, for some reason I'm thinking it's that one, but I could be completely wrong. I never read the books. I did watch the movies, and I only watched them once, so I don't know them well.
Yeah, I'm the same. I didn't read the books. I watched the movies.
But yeah, so that's not where I thought of the. I actually don't know the reference that I thought of. There is some film reference where I remember there being a primary character that whipped himself, and I'm drawing a complete blank on where I saw it, and I know it was not. I was not thinking of the Dan Brown series of interpretations, but it's the exact same thing. I just don't remember where the reference came to mind. I might have to try to figure that out later. But I also thought about it within the context of 7, interestingly enough, because you could take the attack on the 7 deadly sins as also being an extreme form of the same thing.
Nicely said. What's in the box?
And it's I would think I would boil it down to extremism in general is easily interpretable
of any mindset. Extremism from it doesn't matter what the core or what is underneath, what the extremism is for or about. It's almost never okay. And some real-time follow-up. If you had asked me to guess, Dan Brown Da Vinci Code storybook converted to movie had the guy that beat himself, played by Paul Bettany, I would have guessed Angels and Demons, but I confirm that it is the Da Vinci Code.
Interesting. Good to know, I suppose.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've seen those movies. And then there's like a TV. Peacock has a show, a television show adaptation of that character it was played by Tom Hanks. I'm trying to remember the character's name. Something Langdon, maybe. Anyway,
I didn't realize Peacock had a show based on the character. I know this is completely off topic, but I did resubscribe to Peacock in order to watch a Liverpool match. So I'll be resubscribed for the foreseeable future for a little bit anyway. So I'm back to figuring out what list of things I need to try to binge and catch up on while I have access.
Yellowstone's on there. Just saying.
Yeah, it's actually in my list as well.
You do like you are a fan of Kevin Costner, aren't you?
I am. Okay, I even so I know a lot of people want to dump on his portrayal of Robin Hood. To me, it was great. I loved Prince of Thieves. I will admit it was the first instance of seeing Robin Hood crafted in a live action setting for me. Yeah. And it was at a very impressionable time. I get that. All of that goes into it. But I thought it was a great movie. So it is what it is. Then again, it doesn't hurt that the soundtrack was phenomenal.
I was going to say, I was right there with you in that regard. It was at a very impressionable time that it came out, and there were so many toys. And I was just young enough to be still into like action figure toys. And I thought it was. I saw the movie much later. I might have seen Robin Hood Men in Tights before I actually saw Robin Hood, but it was at least 8 years before I saw it. I was 8 because I know it was like sometime around the time I turned 18. I could rent my own movies that I saw it maybe before at a friend's house.
My go-tos very often are that one and Disney's Three Musketeers with Charlie Sheen and Kiefer Sutherland and
Chris O'Donnell,
Oliver Platt. Great cast, great film. Those two are by far the most played movies that I have in Plex.
Oh, wow.
And again, part of it's because soundtracks were phenomenal. Stories were perfect for the young me that was very impressionable and wanted to latch onto a set of ideals and philosophies that were embodied in those stories.
This feels like real after show material.
It does, but it ties in really well. I mean, if you think about it, what was the character of Robin Hood striving for? And it was a better world for everybody, not predominantly the oppressed, because that was the group of people most
that have most to gain,
right? But you saw the same thing with the Three Musketeers. While their purpose was to protect the king, it was in service of attempting to treat everyone equally. And that one, I mean, you can argue against that one pretty easily, but the portrayal of it in film matched the mindset of treating everybody with empathy and compassion and relatively equally. I do want to come back to...
I was going to ask you, do you want to talk about The Salt and the Light?
I do. I want to at least come back to those couple of verses, because I think this is where a lot of traditional Christianity gets it wrong.
Tell me.
Like it's the foundational problem, I guess, that I see more often than not. And are you opposed to actually quoting completely?
No. Okay. No, I'm not opposed to it at all.
Just wanted to make sure, because we've tried to kind of avoid that. So starting in Matthew 5, verses 13 through 16 are specifically what we're referencing. And basically saying, you're the salt of the earth, but the salt's lost its taste. How shall it be restored? No longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under others' feet. Light of the world, a city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. So basically, two different ways of saying you have a purpose, and if you are not fulfilling that purpose, then you're not worth anything. overly strong paraphrasing, but doing so for a reason. Um, People latch on to these ideas, going back to the example about mission trips or spreading the word or being a beacon for converting others to Christianity. This is fundamentally where I think a lot of people have that misconception. Because if you have a purpose and your purpose is to spread the good word, as pretty much every church talks about, it's difficult not to reconcile these passages with either you're doing this thing, which is spreading the word, or you're not fulfilling your purpose, which is problematic. But it's a false equivalency, because nowhere in those passages does it say that you're going and converting people and spreading the good word. It's literally saying you have a purpose, and if you're not fulfilling your purpose, then your actions aren't worthwhile. I think we can agree on that interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't try to tell you what that purpose is explicitly, other than to be an example to others. And that's the piece that people miss, because the passage about being salt and becoming tasteless and being worthless is saying, look, I'm telling you, you have a purpose, and if you're not fulfilling your purpose, you're worthless. Kind of a harsh way of saying it, but that's what it's saying. But then if you look at the light passage, that's where it explains it in detail. You wouldn't be a light that you are then covered, because then you serve no purpose. You would be a light to provide that light to other people, not to impose, not to attempt to change other people, not to do anything other than I'm going to be an example for the values that I hold dear. That's it. And especially when you take it in context with everything that has been stated prior, and obviously I assume we'll get to some of the other verses that expound upon this as we go through this particular series. So maybe it's jumping ahead a little bit, and maybe I'll have to reference it back when we get there. But everything that if you were to take the entirety of what it means to be a Christian and try to boil it down to a sentence, it's to be an example to others so that they want to know more about why you set that example. That's it. It's literally the entire calling for being a follower of this religion.
I think you've really encompassed my criticisms and what I would have said about that, and I like where you went with that. And I think the problem that I have to where I have to make separation for myself is like, we're going through and like, what are the actual ideals? What is actually taught, not how it's practiced by the majority of the people you know, whether it be right or wrong, and judging it for what it is and not how other people do. And so I have to say, oh, I take issue with, trying to be the best Christian you can and trying to spread that and trying to get other people. But that's only because of how many people practice, for me, it's because of how many people practice Christianity incorrectly. That's why that I would have initially taken issue with it. But separating reality from what is there, I don't think there's any problem what's written. It's just how it's been executed.
And it really is difficult to acknowledge
yourself
and separate. And I do, while we're picking on Christianity, because that's what we know, I do want to acknowledge that it is not a Christian-only problem. The same thing exists in other religions as well. And you could think of it as organized religion in general has a problem. And that problem is the incorrect application of teachings for the organization that is religion. And if you take a step away from the religious affiliation and look at the teachings, you come to a different conclusion than you do within the confines of the religious gathering. And it's really mind numbing and at the same time migraine inducing. Like it's difficult, very clearly difficult to reconcile the difference between what is taught as religion and the basis for the foundational teachings of these different texts. I think we could probably do a deep dive into how we got to that divergence if we really felt a need to. And it would probably be interesting. I just don't have a desire to do it.
Neither do I.
But it's so difficult to keep those two things separate. And I attribute it to the bias of being exposed to one or the other more frequently than the actual underlying principles. But I don't think that's a fair line to draw either. Because realistically, where both of us have problems with it are not our immediate associations with what's been taught. It's that we see it day in and day out from all these different people who interact with us in a way and proclaim this faith as their faith loudly and proudly and very vocally,
without humility or meekness.
Yes, and it's wrong, and that's the piece that is so difficult to reconcile, because I don't mind anybody being so completely sure of their viewpoint that they want to proclaim it loudly and proudly and to anybody who will listen. If that's you, it's not what's taught, but that's fine. I can understand someone being so absolutely wrapped up and enthralled in an idea or activity or whatever else. They passionately want to share it with anyone and everyone who will listen. Normally it's CrossFit and veganism, but hey, to each their own. So I don't necessarily fault people who are just that enthusiastic about it. The problem isn't the enthusiasm. The problem is that what they have latched onto is fundamentally incorrect. If there is any scenario that you can think of where you would say this action would help somebody else, it would not hurt anyone, and you are opposed to it, quite frankly, you're not any religion, much less Christian.
We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work or are interested in listening to our new after show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap.